Like, I don't know, man, timber rattlesnakes, like, they're there, but there's gonna be years when you don't see a lot. They're just tough.
Today's the day. I've been waiting on this day for a couple months now. Daniel, who's been in some other videos, invited me to go look for rattlesnakes, and we had a date set up to go do it, and that date is today. So we're gonna go look for rattlesnakes. But here's the thing. I look for rattlesnakes all the time, but today we're gonna have a little bit of a technological advantage. We're gonna cheat. We're gonna cheat big time, and we're gonna use some high-tech stuff to go out and try to locate some rattlesnakes. This is gonna be super, super cool. Even with technology, there's a chance we may not find anything. So I'm hoping, I'm praying that we find at least one rattlesnake. Just one, and that would make my day. So this is going to be really cool. I'm very excited. Pulling into this forest here in central Georgia, it spans several thousand acres, and my hopes are up that we're going to find a rattlesnake today. So I'm here with the guys, and there is a gate and a fence here with a no trespassing sign. I think we're going to open the gate and go down this. No, we're going to climb over the fence, go around the gate and the no trespassing sign, back onto this private property that we have permission to be here. Pretty sure we do. So they said we had to walk a few hundred yards down this road, and apparently there's a rattlesnake den down here, and there's definitely rattlesnakes. I just hope the rattlesnakes are where we can see them. So it doesn't really look like much, but believe it or not, this pile of rocks is a rattlesnake den. This is not the den we're looking for though, but we're just passing by here, so just kind of stopping to eyeball it to see if we see a rattlesnake hanging out. We checked it out, no rattlesnakes here, at least none that we can see, so we're gonna move on. So she usually is right here somewhere?
Yeah, so normally when I'd see her out basking, she'd get up on top and look into the leaves somewhere, and they're sneaky, they get up under the leaves and they're kind of harder to spot, but she would almost always come out of this hole.
Oh really? Cool.
Yeah, and so you could actually, you can just like pull this rock back and you would be able to see her like tucked up in here.
Yeah.
She'd go back up in there.
I wouldn't be, I'm surprised there's enough shelter in there for the winter.
It always surprised me that I'd say like every year probably 10 to 20% of the snakes see something like this.
Cool.
Yeah. I wouldn't have thought that.
Be more insulated than it looks.
Some kind of underground access somewhere down there, I guess.
Okay, so the first question I have, are you just some redneck who likes snakes who had $1,500 laying around to go buy that contraption, or do you work for somebody?
Yeah, man, yeah, so I didn't have the money laying around, unfortunately. No, I'm a professor at Georgia College and State University, and I've been there for about 3 years now. And so this is all my lab's research program. So they're not here right now, but we've got 6 students spread out across the landscape using the same equipment, chasing the snakes around, and yeah, it's all part of our research.
How many snakes are in your study? How many do you have implanted with transmitters?
Yeah, right now we've got 18 adult timber rattlesnakes that have transmitters and accelerometer implants in the field, and we'll probably up that to around 25.
An accelerometer implant in addition to a tracker? We'll tell you more about what that does when we get into the nitty-gritty of his research at the end of this video. But first, let's go find some rattlesnakes.
The hole looks good too, but there's almost no underground access here. No snakes even here.
Yeah, it is.
And you think that other tent we went to's got more rock?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. The other site that John's referring to that has more rock is this place right here. Before we met up with everybody, we went to lunch, and John then took me to this really cool place in the middle of a national forest. This is a natural granite rock outcrop. It's a pretty big mountain of rock is what it is, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Now, this illustrates a point. When you start looking for snakes, if you're really good, you don't look for snakes, you look for habitat. And when you find good habitat, you can find snakes. But if you find perfect habitat, you're probably not going to find any snakes, because a snake wants to hide. And if the habitat is perfect, that's exactly what it'll do. It'll hide.
Every once in a while you'll see individuals just kind of up in these nooks and up against the rocks, but there's like one main kind of pile of rocks up on the other end here where everybody sort of congregates.
I mean, it looks like you could kill somebody with it, you know.
I feel like I'm playing laser tag or something. We just put the snake ID into the digital memory for the actual receiver, and then just program the frequency in, and we just cycle through different individuals. And so we just, depending on who we want to track, just cycle through it, and we listen to the
very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, works pretty well.
So it's wherever you're pointing this to.
Right.
And if you move it away from that, it doesn't pick up.
Right, so it's all directional by volume, and then the pace of the beep. A lot of people think it's going to get faster when you get closer.
So to put a transmitter in a snake, you have to come out here and find a snake that lives in the area where you want to do the research. But you can't just find one snake, you're going to have several snakes. So in your study, you've got 18 rattlesnakes. That takes a lot of time to find those. So once you find them, what do you do? What do you take them to get this procedure done?
Yeah, so when we happen upon a snake out here in the field, whether it's crossing the road or just out here in the forest, we collect it, so we grab it if it's a new snake that meets the kind of minimum size criteria for the study, so they have to be big adults. Once we find it, we take it back to our lab at Georgia College, and so we do all of the procedures in-house. So I've been doing survival surgeries with rattlesnakes for about 10 years now.
So you anesthetize
the snakes, yeah, and so you knock them out, and we make a teeny tiny little incision into the body cavity. We insert the implant and suture it to a rib in the same position and orientation in every single snake. And the entire procedure takes 20-25 minutes, and then the snakes are up within an hour after they were originally knocked out, and they're fine. And we usually release them back out into the field at the original site of capture, usually within a day or two.
Really?
Yeah, they tend to heal quicker and better out here. They're less stressed.
Less stressed, and
they
in
can
captivity.
thermoregulate the way they want to. You know what I mean? They can do all those things that they need to do to bounce back really quickly, and they bounce back quick. I've got at least a dozen observations of us collecting a male during the mating season, doing his surgery, releasing him 24 hours later, and then we come out 2 days later and he's mating with a female. So female holding out. I got a male. Two snakes still here, so at least we can hopefully see one of those. The male's been down by the creek and shed for a couple of weeks now, and this female's been on the rocks.
So him picking up the signal of 2 rattlesnakes is already a really good sign.
Nice.
And John has just spotted our first snake of the day. There it is. You can barely see it. Well, you can't see it at all. It is a timber rattlesnake. Perfect camouflage.
Like that's kind of what they end up looking like.
They gave birth in the fall.
The receiver attached to this antenna did not alert us that this rattlesnake was here. After scanning it, we realized it doesn't have a transmitter. This snake, even though it's at the study site, is not part of the study. This is a timber rattlesnake we've never seen before.
Tag snakes, because it seems like everybody would split already. That's awesome.
You're not going to tag them?
I'm going to take a closer look at it in a second. If you need a... It looks like a... Well, I don't know. Let's see.
Pretty short tail.
It is, yeah. Yeah. She's pretty though.
He's on to it.
Hey, man. Let me see your tail.
Yeah.
knows right where to go. Now that is an impressive rattle. And some people, just because they don't know any better, would kill the snake just to get the rattle. And a lot of those people also think that if you count the segments on the rattle, you can know how old the snake is. Of course, that's not true. The snake's rattle is made of keratin, which is the same thing your fingernails are made of. And the more the snake eats, the more it grows, the more it grows, the more it sheds its skin. Every single time it sheds its skin, it adds one new segment to its rattle. It can shed once a year or several times a year. And as the snake crawls throughout its habitat, it can often break off pieces of the rattle. So counting the segments doesn't really tell you a whole lot. As soon as we walked up on the rock outcrop, John saw this one basking right here, and we all walked over, getting pictures, getting really close to it, and it never rattled. And then after a couple minutes of just photographing it, just a few feet away, it decided to take off to get away from us, and then started rattling. So, just wants to be left alone. But cool, timber rattlesnake right here at this overwintering den. And when this snake took off to get away, it knew exactly where to go. That's very cool. Very cool. Are you picking up a signal of some of them still here?
Yeah, so there's one female that's still in the outcrop underground somewhere, and then there's a big male that's down at the base next to the creek.
So specifically, what kind of data are you trying to collect here?
A whole suite of information, right? So we'll get, habitat, microhabitat use data. We'll document the behavior of the individual at the time of the observation. In this case, we would just say that she was in retreat.
So what are some things you're hoping to learn from the study once it's all over with?
Oh, a whole suite of hypotheses, man. Yes, I mean, we've got projects focused on, the behavioral correlates of overwintering site selection, kind of like we were just talking about, the effects of various overwintering sites on health or on body condition. In terms of the movement behavior, which is what we're doing all active season, we're interested in how they respond to roadways, and even further, how kind of the mating system interacts with roadways. So males more likely to cross roads than females, and how does that kind of mediate differences in the way they respond to roads, all sorts of things like that.
One more question.
Yeah, man.
What do you care?
What do I care? Oh,
no,
well,
I mean seriously,
yeah,
because people
yeah.
see all this you're doing.
Yeah.
I love rattlesnakes.
Yeah,
I
sure.
care. But to the average Joe Blow who thinks only good snake's a dead snake,
Yeah, right.
why do we need to know anything about timber rattlesnakes?
I mean, I could answer it a few different ways, but I think the easiest one is just to talk about their value to the broader ecosystem, right? So out here and pretty much everywhere else large-bodied rattlesnakes exist, they serve as really important, like, tertiary predators. And they exist at really high densities in the landscape, right? So the predatory influence they exert on prey communities is probably a lot stronger than a lot of other mammal or avian predators that exist at similar trophic levels. So I think they occupy these really important positions in their local environments that we sort of discount oftentimes.
I read something somewhere
yeah.
that one timber rattlesnake can consume in 1 year between 3,500 to 5,000 ticks.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Because of how many ticks
secondary ingestion,
Yeah.
on mammals and things. Yeah, no, I think that those kind of ecosystem level roles are things that are easy to gloss over when you think about a rattlesnake that's scary and potentially dangerous and things like that. But I think, studying them and understanding how they interact with the environment and what threats there might be to their populations, those things are all worthwhile. They're important for anybody who enjoys the outdoors. Not just folks who are really into snakes like us.
Yeah, exactly. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
We just arrived at the last known location for this particular rattlesnake. The receiver should be able to pick up the signal from the transmitter in the snake, unless something's happened to the snake, the transmitter, or maybe the snake's crawled off too far out of range for the antenna to even pick it up. Hopefully not.
I'll be real confident. I'll trek off 100 feet in one way and it just disappears. I'll turn around and it's strong again.
Right now we're looking for a male timber rattlesnake that has getting ready to shed its skin. So He thought it was down by the creek, but the signal's coming from up a little higher. So we're changing directions. Hopefully it'll be out where we can see it and not under a pile of rocks where we just know where it is but can't see it. These researchers have to come out here a minimum of twice a week to track these snakes. If they don't and allow too much time to pass, the snakes can move so far out of the range to where they don't know where to begin tracking the snakes from, and they lose that transmitter and lose that snake.
On the move, huh?
So this study has 18 rattlesnakes that are in this area. There's a lot more rattlesnakes that are not in the study that are in this area. How many are we walking past? I have no idea. These snakes hide so well. Even with a transmitter, we got an antenna following the signal and still can't find this thing. All right, back uphill.
Walk right past him.
We walk past him?
Sounds like it. Maybe. He's close.
Okay, he's close. Watch where you're stepping.
Close-ish. Yep. Nothing to look at. Where's he hiding? Hang on.
When you're out looking for snakes, especially venomous snakes, and you're in their habitat, you really have to watch where you're stepping. But when you have technology with you and it's telling you a venomous snake is close to where you're standing and you can't see it, you really need to watch where you're stepping.
Ah, there he is.
See him?
He's not shed, but he's looking a little bit better. The base of that tree, that hardwood.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So we did walk right around that rattlesnake.
We walked right by him. Just watched us. These idiots.
So if you see that tree, that big tree right there, center frame, he's about 18 inches in front of it on the ground. So we'll get a little bit closer in a minute. What are you going to capture him, or what are you going to do? You just...
Same thing, just collect the same data. So we tubed him last week, and we swabbed him for snake fungal disease and weighed him and did some other things. And now it's basically, we don't have to touch him until extraction. So his transmitter should die, I think it's late April.
And his transmitter is not visible, or is it? Is it an antenna?
All implanted.
The antenna as well?
Yeah, antenna is subcutaneous, so under the skin. Yeah, and so they're all sutured to a rib.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at these leaves, man, he is perfectly camera. His head's up.
Yeah,
He's alert. Yeah. And they hide so well. So well.
I think he's only even taken maybe one shallow breath the whole time we've looked at him.
Yeah, they'll just kind of hold their breath. I'm not even seeing any tongue flicks from him.
Hasn't even blinked.
Yeah. So, as close as I am to the snake, it's not doing anything. Well, you know, which can be problematic if you're out here not watching where you step, and you step in the wrong spot. That'd be really bad. But as long as you're out here, you're paying attention, and you get close to a timber rattlesnake, this thing simply wants to be left alone. It's when people see this and think, oh man, look how dangerous this is. You know, we got to kill it. We got to get rid of this thing because it's going to bite somebody. And that's when problems occur. You know, leaving these guys alone and realizing exactly just how important these are to the environment. But you know, most of that importance escapes most people they have no idea just how valuable an animal like this is to this ecosystem. As I move around trying to get good footage of this snake, if I get too close, it will definitely bite me. But that's not what it really wants to do. This snake wants to be still and be unseen and not have any interaction with me at all. And it's serious about it too. This snake is not flicking his tongue. It's holding its breath, not moving at all. It just wants to be left alone. I'm gonna leave a camera set up on this snake. We're gonna go look for more rattlesnakes. I'm gonna check back with this snake a little bit later. Okay. If we lose my camera, just if you find it one day, remember me. Yeah. Now, did you already track this one on here? You heard it over there?
Not yet. I just know where she's been hanging out.
Okay.
Hopefully she's not too far away from me.
Yeah. Walking through here, you gotta have your snake eyes turned on. Every step you take, make sure you know what's there before you take it. And make sure you know what's to the left and right of your foot before you take it too. So it appears the signal is coming from this log pile, which means the snake could be underneath it somewhere where we can't see it. Hopefully not. We'll see.
Hopefully she's out. But sounding like she's using it, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's a stunner.
And like she's looking bad, you know, because it's the beginning of the year. I'm telling you, this thing's like white when she heats up. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's a pretty Timber Rattlesnake.
They're all pretty in their own way.
Yeah. That's the prettiest one today. Good little spot she's got. So we just found our third Timber Rattlesnake. You said this is a female? Female? This is a really pretty snake. This one is not close to shedding like the other ones. Those other ones look kind of rough a little bit. This one's really pretty, but most girls are usually prettier than boys. But just like the other two, it's coiled up and nose is hidden, and you know, rattling or moving gives away its position. So again, you know, they're not aggressive. They just want to be left alone. But a beautiful example of a Timber Rattlesnake. And is it dangerous? Yeah, when we do stupid stuff to it, that's when it gets dangerous. Don't do stupid stuff. Now it's time to head back to get my camera that I left with the other rattlesnake. My camera's still here, but the snake's not. Let's see where it went. So the camera's been rolling and the snake's not moving. But after about 5 minutes after we walked off, the snake decided to go somewhere else. Now you may not find this part interesting, but I think it's pretty incredible. The way this snake is about to crawl from this little spot in front of my camera to its new hiding place, to me is pretty amazing. We start seeing him flick his tongue a little, raise his head to kind of look around. And then it has to decide, okay, where do I go? I think I'll go under those limbs and hide next to that big old tree. One thing this rattlesnake knows for sure is there's a lot of predators in these woods that would love to eat a rattlesnake. And it knows those predators have really good eyesight too. So not being seen is exactly what will save this snake's life. Now, while I do think it's really cool how slow the snake is crawling, but it's crawling so slow, I don't want to sit here and watch it. So the footage you're seeing has been sped up 8 times its normal speed. This is a slow moving snake. Now to me, this is the cool part. The snake's got his head going which way he wants to go, and now the rest of its body continually moves very slow. trying not to make sounds in the leaves, trying not to be seen by a hawk, taking his time, going to hide. And as I sit here and watch this snake, you know, once you get past the fact that, yeah, it could possibly kill you, you realize it's kind of peaceful. Just watching how much patience this snake has. Not like me, I don't have any patience. Let's speed it up. Let's go. So inserting a tracker allows you to use radio telemetry to track the snake. But explain this accelerometer to me, please.
So we use two basic types of technology to study the behavior of these things in nature. And so radio telemetry has been around in wildlife studies for almost 40 years, at least with snakes at this point, dating back to the early 80s. And so that's real simple, right? This is a little radio transmitter that we implant in the animal. It's got a unique frequency that emits a pulse. You tune your radio receiver and your handheld antenna to that frequency, and you can go and relocate that individual whenever you need to in the environment. And so that's cool and powerful, but right, that it basically gives you a point here on a certain date and a point over there on a certain date. Everything in between those 2 points is kind of a black box, right? And so we were really interested in trying to figure out what was happening between point A and point B beyond just drawing a straight line between those 2 points in time. And that's where the accelerometers came in. And so accelerometers are the same bits of tech that are in your smartwatch and your phone that count your steps or track activity. And so we take a stripped down version of that, couple it with the transmitter, and it continuously records acceleration over the entire active season. So for 6 to 9 months, we take those data out at the end of the monitoring period, and then we have to use some fancy math, so some machine learning, right? And we train a classification model that basically relates specific signals in the acceleration to distinct behavioral states. And so on the kind of more simple end of the spectrum, we can classify how much time the snake spends moving or immobile over the entire activity season. So we can get these kind of real-time activity budgets from those data, which is really cool and useful. And so in addition to classifying movement and immobility, we can then increase the number of classifiable behaviors within those data by upping the recording frequency. And so Morgan, one of my graduate students, has been involved in developing a method for actually taping the miniature accelerometers at about 25% of the length of the snake, just on top of its body, so that we can record strikes and prey ingestion events out in nature. And so we've got the sort of lab-based portion is done. The model's been validated. The attachment method works really, really well in the lab. We've been trying to translate it to the field with kind of varying levels of success. But we've had a couple of long-term field deployments of about 40 days where we actually had a confirmed predation event, and we went back and the model accurately classified the strike a few hours before the predation event. So we're getting kind of the full spectrum of behavior here, right? When they're moving, wow, when they're not moving, when they're eating, and how those things interact. So, yeah.
And so what kind of numbers are you seeing as far as the average distance a snake would travel, let's say, in a day?
Yeah.
Or a couple of days?
Yeah. So the typical kind of movement rate, so like meters per day over the entire monitoring period of a snake. For like a male, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 or 60 meters. For a female, it's about half that. Now that's not excluding all of the zeros, because given that they're pit vipers, right, there's a lot of times they just don't move because they're in ambush and they're just waiting patiently for prey to pass within striking distance. But when they do move, it's pretty considerable. So if you pull out all of those zeros, all the times that they don't move between relocations, the distance per movement is somewhere closer to 200 or 300 meters for all these individuals. So a typical movement is going to be, you know, a couple football fields, which is in a straight line. That's like,
how long will it take them to go that far?
You know, we know that because of the accelerometers. It varies tremendously, but I think in general, not very long. So what we've found with our accelerometer data, which basically allows us to quantify kind of real-time movement durations on a daily basis, is that on average out here, a male might spend 20 to 30 minutes a day moving across the entire active season. So not much time at all.
So could they move 200 meters in an hour?
Easy.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're, given that the sort of...
That's a lot faster than I thought they would come.
I think they're deliberate about it. Yeah, so I think, they're, the riskiest thing they can do is the way I always like to think about it. The riskiest thing they do in life is move, right? It's energetically expensive in the big scheme of things. It's probably the most energetically expensive thing they do, right? And it's risky, right? It's probably when they're most vulnerable to predator detection and things like that. And they obviously, they're not active foragers, so they're not, the only benefit they get from moving is searching for a new ambush site. And so I think they want to maximize the amount of time they spend in ambush and minimize the amount of time they spend moving. And that's all about efficiency, right? And I think, I think the fact that they have pretty large home ranges and move pretty significant distances between points, but don't move for very long, right? 20 or 30 minutes like we were talking about on a typical daily basis. I think that really highlights the efficiency of their kind of life history strategy.
Especially if they're going that far.
It's pretty cool. I find a lot of dead snakes on the road, and it breaks my heart because, especially the rattlesnakes, because I know people see them because they're really big. And I mean, I understand that accidents happen on occasion, but on a lot, out here on the dirt forest roads, people are driving real slow, and I find dead adult timber rattlesnakes out there almost on a weekly basis over the summer. So I know people are doing that intentionally. And I think, if you're out here, you clearly have some connection to the forest. You're either, you like hunting, or you like hiking, or you just like being in the outdoors. And, I think we should extend that sort of respect and value that we do to the forest, or the outdoors, to every, wildlife group that exists within it, including the rattlesnakes, even though I know people might be fearful of them. I think they have every right to be here and do what they do, and you can still come out and enjoy the forest any way you like. They're not going to bother you, as we've demonstrated today, right? They want nothing to do with us, and the easiest way to get bit by a snake is to try to catch it or kill it. Right?
Definitely drive around the snakes.
Yeah, I think, please don't squish the snakes. Please don't kill them when you find them. Call me. Call Jason.
Awesome, man, that's awesome.